Very good.
I don't want to go all the way through.
Good evening. Thank you to all members of the public, councillors and officers who are here joining us for today's meeting of the Planning and Highways Committee. Councillors and officers are reminded of their commitment to the civility and respect pledge and to be mindful of this during tonight's meeting. Please be aware the council is video recording this meeting and this will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. I'd just like to highlight some key points of the meeting format. Please can I ask everyone to have their phones turned off or set to silent. The fire exits are via the doors out to the chamber and down the external fire escape stairs or via the main entrance that you entered the building through. In the event of a fire, the lift should not be used. The assembly point is outside the Royal Mail Parcel Office on West Street. Please remain seated unless you are invited to speak or need to take a comfort break. The toilet facilities are out in the corridor you entered through. Members of the public are invited to participate in the meeting with the key points as follows. Public participation is limited to a maximum of 4 minutes per person and must be relating to an item of business on the agenda. As Chair, I will interject if needed to enforce this. For those looking to speak specifically about a planning or tree works application, you will be invited to speak immediately before the committee considers the application. For those looking to speak on the other agenda items, you will be invited to speak during the public participation agenda item. Please raise your hand to show you wish to speak and I will invite you to speak. If you are comfortable standing, please do so to ensure you can be heard across the room. You do not need to state your name when you start speaking if you do not wish to, but please clearly state which agenda item you are speaking about. I would ask that participants looking to leave the meeting wait until the end of agenda item to limit distractions for other participants. Members of the public looking to leave the building will need to be escorted out by a council officer. To all present, please remember to show respect to others in the meeting and avoid interrupting where possible to enable others to follow the meeting. If any councillor feels concerned about any aspect of the meeting or discussion, please clearly state point of order. I will then gesture for you to elaborate. If anyone present is felt to be behaving unacceptably, they can be ejected from the meeting by resolution. Thank you for listening. On behalf of the council, I would like to thank everyone for attending this town council meeting. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence.
Just Councillor Walraven and Councillor Meek here as substitute.
Thank you, Councillor Meek. Agenda item 2, disclosure of interest. To deal with any disclosure by members of any disclosable pecuniary interest and interests other than pecuniary interests as defined under the Seaford Town Council Code of Conduct and the Localism Act 2011 in relation to matters on the agenda. Do you have any? No, thank you. Agenda item 3, public participation. To deal with any questions or brief representations from members of the public in accordance with relevant legislation and Seaford Town Council policy. In accordance with Town Council policy, members of the public wishing to speak on individual planning applications may do so immediately before each planning application. Do any members wish to speak on any other item on the agenda? Yeah, no, any?
What, item 5?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Agenda item number 5, the South Downs National Park local plan. First of all, policy SD1, sustainable development. That is actually looking at ensuring there is guidance for the section 245 of the Levelling Up Act of 2023, and this strengthens the duty of the national parks for protected landscape, and this is essential and really can we ask that gets added into that policy for SD1. They're already looking at it as a future consideration. Then looking at policy SD23, which is tourism, The tourism policies are all on one page. They've got a section on future considerations. So mainly I'm talking about the bits that are in future considerations. So they're looking at having guidance on hotspots and about updating their policies that they've done their reviews on, because actually the visitor study was in 2012 and the other studies were in 2015, which means they're like 15, 12 years out of date, and they'll be even further out of date by the time the plan finishes in 2040. They're also looking at mapping existing hotspots and attractions, events, etc. So with these three future considerations, there is a need that they need to be within the local plan. So asking that they do an updated visitor study. As much has changed since COVID, and we've heard us stand up and talk about social media, TikTok. And what we don't want to see is South Hill Barn, which is currently described as a honeypot destination, because we're struggling with a bit of the sustainable travel plan, becoming a hot spot location. So they're also looking at mapping of locations, which is all good. Last year, as part of their plan for the South Downs National Park, they allowed people to drop a pin in a map. So there were about 260 of the pins dropped. Lots of positive comments, however there was quite a bit that was negative around the eastern area of Seaford, with Hope Gap steps, the need to repair them, roads being unsafe, crossings being a problem. The cost of parking was a barrier for young people, and South Hill Barn with the litter, the traffic, balancing the visitor needs and things that were going on there. So what I would like to suggest is whether or not there would be an addition to a couple of these policies. And the addition on the end of 1B is whether or not you would consider having something like has an adverse effect on the residential areas close to or through which traffic passes. So this would be adding on to other things that you consider when you're doing visitor centres. And then for 1C, adding on about farming, because there's nothing about farming, and adding on that it does not detract from the business of farming. So that's some bits about that policy. Then going on to SD17, which is about protection of the water environment. They've got a future consideration about protecting the chalk aquifers. The initial inspiration for the Seven Sisters National Nature Recovery Reserve Park was to do with protecting the chalk aquifers. And with that in mind, I'm really asking if we add in something else on aquifers into the policy so that there is a more strengthened understanding about it, because the number of tourism going across there is causing damage to some of the grass, which means that the water isn't as plentiful because it doesn't flow through. So, and I have had conversations with the head of environment for South East Water on it at a webinar conference. So it's really about, is there any way that we could strengthen up anything to do with the policy SD17 on the protection of water with regards to the aquifer, because the Eastbourne to Seaford chalk aquifer is described by the government as in a poor condition. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Agenda item 5, draft local plan for South Down National Park Authority. I'm going to mention 3 items. One is dark night skies, the second one is safeguarding views, and the third one is contaminated land. Starting with dark night skies. As light travels, are South Down National Park able to influence developments on their borders, as the light will impact on the International Dark Night Sky Reserve. We'd like to suggest that you consider including new developments that are outside the South Downs National Park but are within the impact zone, the distance to be decided, to conserve and enhance the intrinsic values of the International Dark Sky Reserve. Number 2, regarding SD6, safeguarding views. Consideration must be given to add in a point about the new legislation called S245 of the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act 2023, as this strengthens the duty for protected landscapes. The Department of Environment has given guidance on this and states, I quote, The duty also applies to functions undertaken outside the designation boundary, which affects land within the protected landscape. Natural beauty, special qualities and key characteristics can be highly dependent on the contribution provided by the setting of a protected landscape. Aspects such as tranquility, dark skies, the sense of remoteness, wildness, cultural heritage are long views from and into the protected landscape and may draw upon the landscape character and quality of the setting, unquote. The last one, regarding SD 55, contaminated land. There is a need for a national register of contaminated land. The South Downs National Park may be unaware of some historic refuge sites. The information of these sites are not available online. Our recent visit to the Keep, where paper copies are stored from East Sussex Record Office, discovered a refuse tip near the Coast Guard's cottages. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My comments are much more detailed, and they relate to the proposed draft.
Is this still Section 5, so the National Park? Yeah.
Yes, I beg your pardon. Yes, it's Section 5. It relates to the draft proposed reply that the Council might make to the South Downs Park Authority, and my specific comments relate to page 45 on the draft that's in front of councillors, I think the papers that were circulated, and specifically just sticking to really 4 points. Halfway down that section, it's entitled Traffic and Public Transport, but the third paragraph talks about public transport available in Seaford. The first point, the detail, I think the two distances there need looking at. I think from previous work that Seaford has done, the Seaford Golf Course is 2.4 kilometres from the town and the main post office. A detail. The second comment is at the end of that first sentence of that paragraph, which begins, although public transport is available. I'd invite councillors to consider adding another sentence which said that building houses on the site LE 109 is not a sustainable proposition because of the distance and because of the parking. My third comment relates to midway through that paragraph where there is a section talking about quoting the South Downs comments on the site LE 109, where it talks about utilising the existing golf club access. The issue with that is that it removes a substantial proportion of the golf club's existing hard standing parking, and I think that should be pointed out given that parking is a real issue in this area. And I think also one should point out that actually if the golf club were to re-provide that lost parking and the lost parking on the site LE 109, which is an overspill car park as well as a golf training site, the only way that the golf club could do that would be eating into the green space of the national park to re-provide adequate parking. And I think that might be worth including in the response if councillors are happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to make any comment? All right, thank you. So we'll move on to agenda item 4, which is planning applications. So planning applications received in the week Monday the 10th of February. LW/25/0040 36 Raymond Close, single storey side extension with a flat roof, a platform and a ramp to the rear. Any members of the public wish to make a comment on this? No, so I open it up to the committee. Councillor Honeyman.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's a corner plot there effectively, and it's a mini infill at the back, so I'd be happy to support it. Part of it's single story. If it was double, that would be different. But it's single story.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? Does it find a seconder?
Yeah, gotcha. Can't stand flat roofs, but in this particular application, it's on the rate, can't be seen from them. So I'll second Councillor Gumman on this one.
Thank you. Any other comments? No. So we have proposed by Councillor Honeyman, seconded by Councillor Lord to support this application. So all in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. So planning applications received in the week commencing Monday the 17th of February. LW/25/0035 10 Southway. This is a section 73A retrospective permission for the removal of the front porch and replacement single-storey front extension. Associated works including external wall insulation. Members of the public wish to speak on this? Thank you.
Evening. I'm speaking on behalf of several neighbours. The application for an eco house is great, but there's very little detail or artist's impression to be found online as to what it's going to look like. And there is concern that it won't be in keeping with Southway, which is an area of established character. So we're asking that consideration be given as to how this will fit into the neighbourhood plan, the enlarged porch and the building line, just to ensure there is compliance with the Seaford neighbourhood plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this application? No, it's open up to the committee. Councillor Lord.
Thank you, Chair. External wall insulation, EWI, basically means that you put a minimum of 50mm insulation on, covered by a render. So it'll be a render finish rather than a traditional finish. I hate the word retrospective. That means all we'll do is push it through the back door. I really hate that word, and that appears what they're doing in this particular instance. I agree with members that put that. We need a detail of a section of how they're going to insulate the property, which is EWI. How they're going to finish it off. It's normally 2 coats of self-coated render. We need sort of finish, the texture, and also the colour of the render. And I agree that it could be excellent for the house, but in actual fact, look at eyesore in the location it is. So I'm going to sit on the fence until it comes from the members of the committee.
Councillor Honeyman.
Thank you. I don't think I wouldn't want to not support this particular application because I think it would enhance the house. But yeah, it would have been interesting more information. I'd be more information about how it's going to be finished up. I think that needs to be the key. Obviously, what Councillor Lord was saying. So I'd support it. We'd make a few comments as part of the thing if we do support it as part of our response.
So can I also say, if they were to put drywall insulation inside the property, it would achieve the same U value as EWI external wall insulation. And if they do insulation inside the property, it would achieve the same U value, the same heat loss value, I should say. And it's only perhaps an inch inside your house. It's done a bit of a mess because you've put plasterboard with insulation inside your house. It's rendered over, and it doesn't affect the external characteristics of the property, but still gives it the same basic green credentials. I would support this application on the pretext that we have a lot more information as to the way it's going to be insulated, its texture and colour and finish. There's also an awkward detail around the windows, which we're not going to go into now. Normally that doesn't achieve much because there's so much heat loss through the windows from the outside where the actual cavity closes. So I would support it on reservation that we have more information on this particular application.
Councillor Honeyman.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Lord, retrospective permissions.
I can't stand it.
And it says in the neighbourhood plan, page 34, on detached properties, a new porch should respect the building line of the street and should normally be of a subservient scale that does not dominate the building. And I've looked at the pictures on Street View just to get a sort of idea, and I'm very mixed as to whether it is subservient to the actual scale because there are big detached houses. So I am slightly concerned whether actually this is subservient to this. I'm not sure either whether to agree or disagree on this.
Okay, just for the answer, the building line extends from the bottom bay of the property, number 10, which is our application. So if you can, if you go left on one, please, Isabel.
What, this one?
Yeah, well, come in a bit more. Yeah, okay, so mess up that.
Sorry.
Well, the building line
Yeah.
goes from the first bay of the house, which is the first gable end, and it should be in direct line with the extension. In actual fact, from this, if it's to scale, it would appear it's extending about 500 mil out from the existing building line of the property. And again, it contravenes the Planning Act. Again, it's retrospective. This is what they always do. They always push one through the back door. So we'd have a difficulty enforcing that, and I think it's very naughty what they've done. So there you go.
It's not just the porch, because they've
It's-
now
it's a
added
porch.
a shower room onto
It's a downstairs.
the front
But basically,
extension.
it's almost like another room.
Yeah.
Is it basically, and whoever, well, they should know that by observation, really, but still. You see on the drawing there, that's the one there, Isabel. Basically where the lounge is, the building line extends from the lounge upwards, which is going up to the top of the picture. And you notice for a fact, it extends, what I can't see in the figure, so it's about 900 mil, something I can't see my eyes on that good. So it's extended, 950 mil, something like that. So it's actually extending out, and it shouldn't do that. Oh, 1,570. So about what? Nearly 5 foot. But to enforce and get it pulled down, we need a good solicitor on that one. So honestly, if you've done it, I won't support it. And with the EWI, I'll support that with more information.
Just come back, Chair. Number 6, I mean, it's obviously relative to other building lines as well in the locality. Number 6 is really does. If you look at number 6, it's in with and keep at number 6. If you go on the one you're on at the moment, Isabel.
This one?
Number 6 is over there. There's number 8. Number 6. There's number 6.
Yeah.
You see, where it's in keeping with number 6, isn't it?
No, but with respect, Councillor,
Yeah.
the building line is proportional to the building. So your
Yeah.
building will be built inside a plot. The plot will have a building line which was originally agreed when the property was built, when it was built. And that's your building line. It's exceeded the length of the building line. It's basically 5 foot long, well 5 foot wide I should say. But yeah, that's me, short there.
Councillor Buchanan.
Sorry, just a pedantic thought here. The existing porch actually extends beyond the living room. I don't know whether that would constitute a building line.
I've got an existing plan over.
Yeah, it's here.
Good. Yeah, the porch there is a temporary structure. But anyway, yeah, I understand it. Yeah, so what I do, the extent is the porch is existing structure. The dotted line you can see there, that's the actual building line, which extends past it. But I'm going to start putting over.
Okay.
A couple of foot or
Pedantic.
I think at the minute we've got,
Two things.
because it's retrospective
It's built.
and it's built, then we're happy to support it, even though we don't like retrospective, but we're unsure with the external wall insulation. We'd prefer to have more information on that with what it's going to be, the colour and everything, to see whether it's going to be more in keeping. Is that?
Yeah.
Councillor Meek, you had your hand up.
Oh, just coming in on that. Yes, it's already built, but is there anything we can do to mitigate what is already built to make it more in keeping with the street scene?
Basically, what
Yeah. But
You're stumped, aren't you? Yeah.
So I think we'll support the building, but what the colour and everything, we need more information before we can support
Just
that.
more information, really.
Have you got all that? Yeah. So can I have a proposer for supporting the building but requiring more information
support it. For those premises, with some extra information on it.
Definitely, yeah. And a seconder for that?
Oh gosh, I'll second.
Thank you. And can I have a show of hands of all in favour of that? And abstaining? And against?
I'm not happy with it, this was done retrospective.
But that's carried with 4-2. Thank you. So we move on to LW/25/0072, 35 Heathfield Road, demolition of double garage and erection of one single-storey dwelling house with associated hard and soft landscaping and drop curbs. Do any members of the public wish to comment on this? No, then I open it up to the committee. Councillor Honeyman.
Well, so I did look at the planning appeal notice as a starting point, and the thing is, compared to that application and this one, is the bungalows closer to the road this time as opposed to being into the garden, so you haven't got that massive driveway going which would have really changed the character, which is what the appeal was all about. However, not having a bungalow next very close to it, have two long gardens. Well, it's much more favourable out of the two, but whether or not it's enough to support, I'll see what the others say. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else want to comment? Councillor Lee?
I do vaguely remember that previous application. I have to say that I feel this is a very good second try, and I would support this because I think it's the fact that the roof level is so much lower. It's not obtrusive, and it's in line with the other houses. It doesn't break up the run of the gardens at the back. I would support it. It seems to be fairly sympathetically designed and implemented, I'd say.
Yeah, it's actually on the building line as well, which we were discussing in the previous application. I think it looks to me it looks like a nice cottage, to be honest with you. I think you don't show a dog and a bicycle, don't you? You know what I mean? You don't show like a motorbike or something, do you? I think it's quite a nice application, and providing you actually rebuild the flint wall and do the driveway and whatnot. It's an infill, and I think, well, it's a good one. So I'll second Councillor Meek, please.
Thank you. Councillor Honeyman.
Yeah, which I'm now confused about is everyone saying infill, because is this not being counted as an outbuilding? Because in the neighbourhood plan it says about, is this counted as an outbuilding, or how is this being, because it says on here erection of one number single-storey dwelling house with associated hard and soft landscaping, but as it's on the existing property of number 35, that's why I just want to clarify, is this counted as an outbuilding? Because it's then not meant to be used as an independent residential unit, or they're using a piece of land and they're putting a completely new property on there.
That's what I'm doing,
Yeah.
They've split it.
yeah.
So that's what I just wanted to get clarified, how this is being looked at.
Wait, where was the picture? Yeah, here. So that's the original. This was the whole thing. That's the original, and then this was where the garage was.
So they are dividing
up,
the
splitting
property into a separate.
So it's not classified as that then?
It would
Not
not,
in
you
the
know,
back
not a
garden,
dwelling.
back
They're not a outbuilding.
Right, that's what I just
Yeah.
wanted to
Wish I know it's like that,
get
you know.
clarified.
I mean, do you want to, if we're presenting, could we have a look at the old one or not? Was that a bit too much to see the old plan?
The old plan was right at the.
Yeah, we could just
Bottom
for
of the
comparison, yeah, then we'll see that.
I don't know.
I was rejected that to council.
Yeah, it's fine in the old one, which is
I don't know if I'll be able to.
220659, isn't it?
Quick enough.
It's actually the other building.
It's the other building.
Yeah,
It's out
Yeah.
two over on the left, yeah.
Not
I think a confusing issue with councillor, just walk this.
Well, but I'm going to quickly come back. Obviously, that particular Heathfield, Southdown area, was this Southdown? Yeah. It is quite a mixture of different sorts of properties, and there are some already have got a few bits in the back garden. So I think we have to accept they are substantial properties, and where it is that there's many sorts of different designs. It is that sort of area. So this is a bit more measurable and controlled, and more in keeping in the area. So
Yeah.
I'd be more happy to support this.
Yeah.
Do you have any other comments? So we have a proposal on the table to support this application from Councillor Meek and seconded by Councillor Lord. Have a show of hands, all in favour please. Abstaining? Thank you, Councillor London. So that is carried to support. So we move on to LW/25/0074 3 to 5 Clinton Place. Alterations to provide 3 aluminium glazed shop fronts. Any members of the public wish to speak on this? No, I open it up to the committee. Councillor Buchanan.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I think we kind of went through this before in many regards, and it seemed okay at that time, so I'd be prepared to support this.
Well done, Councillor.
I was going to say, we played spot the difference of what the changes was that we approved last time and what they wanted this time. There is very small details, which is why, because of the area it's in, they've had to bring it back for a planning application. So we change it, but it's...
Okay, we could play that game then.
It's the windows at the top,
yeah,
they're
well-
just, and the door moved.
Yeah, so it's,
Oh, wow. Yeah, no.
It's the height of the transom, that's what it is.
But that's why it's had to come back.
Yeah.
But
I'd still support this as it sits now.
does that find a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Honeyman. And is there any other comments on this application? No, so all in favour of supporting this application? That's unanimous.
Chris has one quick addition to it, to make sure that the powder coating is put element is marine grade.
sorry, go again?
Well, it's
Marine.
going to be powder coated aluminium to keep being the colour in keeping with the environment. There's different types of powder coating aluminium, just make sure it's marine grade, because the cheap stuff won't last 5 minutes in Seaford.
Are you
It's
happy
more
to have that?
expensive.
Yes, I appreciate the marine grade. You can get coatings, but I wouldn't argue with it being...
It's basically put 2 coats in it, basically. It's more expensive, but what you don't want is when it peels off aluminium, it then goes to a grey powder and it's awful. That's all I'm saying to you.
Is everyone happy with that addition?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's supposed to shine anyway, so why bother?
Especially don't worry about
Planning applications received in week commencing Monday the 24th of February, LW/25/0095, 2 Holmes Close, Bishopstone, single storey side extension. Any members of the public wish to speak on this? Open up to the committee then. Who'd like to start? Councillor Honeyman.
I thought this was fine, 'cause it's just lining things up, filling in a gap. So I thought this was fine to support.
Thank you.
Yeah, noticed it.
Does that find a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Buchanan. Anyone else wish to comment on this application?
Where's Linda when you don't need her?
And so we have a proposer and seconded to support this application. All those in favour? Thank you very much, that's unanimous. LW/25/0090 48 Salisbury Road. Demolish existing conservatory and replace with single-storey rear extension to reduced footprint. Any members of the public wish to comment on this? No, open up to the committee. Councillor Buchanan.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's kind of fine. It looks as if it's going to improve the heat loss and stuff from a kind of fully glazed roof to something less so.
Yeah,
And it
absolutely right.
must be a good reason for doing it, and I have no objection to it. That's
I'll second that. I think basically the conservatory's leaking and it's cheaper to replace the conservatory and try and stop the leak on it. So I absolutely agree with Councillor Buchanan. I'll second it. It's on the rear of the property as well, so it can be seen from the road.
Any other comments? I think a lot of people are getting rid of their conservatories nowadays and building
Exactly
single
what happened.
extensions. So,
Nothing for planning, I'm sorry.
so we have a proposed seconded for supporting this application. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. LW/25/0091/CD for Church Street, Seaford. This is only a discharge of a condition from a already approved plan, and actually we don't usually get involved in this because it's just them signing things off with the Lewes District Council, so we will leave that one.
Yeah.
So we move on to LW/25/0058 3 Barkham Close, single storey rear extension. Any members of the public wish to speak on this? We open up to the committee. Councillor Meek.
I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's fine. It's at the back. It's not going to affect anybody. It's single story.
It is what it is, actually, Chair.
Are you proposing that?
Yes.
Does that find a seconder, Councillor Lord?
Yeah.
Any other comments? No. So, all those in favour of supporting the application? Thank you. Then we move on to tree applications. TW/25/0008/TCA, Old School House, Upper Belgrave Road. And I won't read out all both of them.
Yeah.
I haven't got anything on this
No.
either, so
It's,
just their application.
well, to be honest with you, it's, sorry, Chair. It's basically, it's a blanket application. The tree would actually is desperately need of doing. We're going to do it just before the nesting season and before the growing season, and it should be carried before the end of April, so I'm going to support this application.
What about the felling or removal of the hawthorn?
Remove it. It's quite a nasty invasive, and hawthorn, once it gets established, the roots are so difficult to get hold of, to get out, and the more you prune back hawthorn, the more vicious it grows. So you cut it back and it grows twice as quick. You cut it back and it grows twice as quick. So sometimes you've got to be brave in removing it. So I think it should be removed, but other members of the committee might feel different. And believe you me, within 5 years there'll be seeds that are coming up which you've not got rid of. So it will come up again. No matter how clever you are, it's clever than you.
Councillor Meek.
I believe it says in the submission that it was rotten.
So, believe you me, Councillor, it will come up again no matter what you do with it.
Councillor Honeyman.
Just an observation, that it said there was going to be pictures, but I couldn't find any pictures.
there's nothing.
Is there in it?
No, but
Scroll
now,
all the way down the bottom, couldn't see anything.
No, it said though, and it's kept going.
We've got forgotten.
I think sometimes they're not uploaded.
It's good like that.
quick enough, yeah.
It's just when you were saying a tree to be filled, it's quite nice to actually see a picture.
Yeah. So we have a proposal to from Councillor Lord, yes. Does that find a seconder? Councillor Honeyman, thank you. Any other comments on this application? No. So all those in favour of supporting this? That's unanimous, thank you. Then we move on to agenda item 5, South Downs National Park Authority local plan consultation. So to consider the report 180/24 for the Town Council's draft response to the South Downs National Park Authority's local plan consultation. Any comments? Councillor Lord.
Thank you. It's with the dark sky policy. I've dealt with the dark sky policy now for over 10 years. And I've got local parish councils who wanted to install low-level lighting in and around car parks in the South Down National Park. And when I've contacted South Down National Park, they put an absolute blanket on it and said, we're not having any lighting, low lighting, car park lighting, no lighting whatsoever. So various parish councils have said, well, if somebody falls over walking from the car park to the parish churchyard, I'm going to sue you. So Seaford National Park's answer was, well, buy a torch. As blunt as that. So the dark sky policy will not, I can't see being instructed in any way, shape or form, because they really want to put a blanket on lighting. So I think it's one thing which we can be relatively safe in saying that the Seaford National Park will keep to that one, unless something dramatic happens in the meantime. So yeah, I think I think it's about right with all bits and pieces, but it's got to settle itself down, and it's going to take some bedding down as well, I think, councillors as well. But everybody's had a tug at this in one way or another, and clever people in you and I will eventually come to some kind of compromise.
You, Councillor Meek.
Just coming on the dark skies policy, what I read through on that policy was that it seems to all be to do with development, new development, and it seems that anything that is already built doesn't seem to have a retrospective action taken on it, which is rather ironic considering that South Downs National Park has made such a fuss about Exeat Bridge and having traffic lights there which will be shining in the dark night skies when the pub next door, there's a petition going on to Mitchell and Butler, I think it is, who own the pub,
Yes, well,
that it's absolutely, it's like a kind of airport there at night.
yeah.
And it seems ironic to me that you can have something like that sitting in the national park, where then they're doing nothing about reducing the lighting from the pub, yet they're complaining about the idea of having traffic lights or bleed from Belisha beacons or something. And you think, well, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I would like us to put in something and say, why can't, incrementally lighting levels be lowered within the park on areas which are very brightly lit at the moment, who are then using the fact that it's already like that as an excuse for not doing anything about it. But I don't know if that's something they'll countenance, but it seems to be all to do with new development, which seems kind of crazy.
But Richard, if you take East Dean's black at night, which is good if you're studying astronomy. I'm going to stand corrected. Does the dark sky policy appertain to businesses or just housing developments? And it doesn't really make it clear to me. This is where I think Councillor Meek was actually saying, well, why has the pub got it and nobody else can? And it's got a dark sky policy, but it doesn't say that. I don't know if it makes businesses or an exception or if they're in it. So I don't know about that. It's just something which I would like to get a clarification on, perhaps. Because if you go, what's it called? Friston is a pub there. That has its lights and all that as well, but it's got its little microbrewery. So and that's in the middle of the dark sky policy as well. So I don't know if it applies to new builds, which is fine, and you can do respectively for public places, but does it apply to businesses? And I can't find if it does or not. So it's just something that it doesn't really matter to me because I don't go down to the cook really as an actual pub. Just need clarification on that.
It does.
I do like the comments from the residents we had earlier regarding that although this is for the South Downs, is actually they then look for the dark skies policy on their edges.
Yeah, on the perimeter. Yeah.
And actually that their policy should for that bordering and a set distance from their land that actually is brought into their plan as well. Because obviously that will help protect the very borders, because as I said they will be bleed into and we could lose the light and we could lose the dark skies with the light pollution from any building sites.
I think just the comments all the residents have made, the members of the public have made here are very, very valid and they should take them forward. I think Isabel would take them forward. It's very particularly farming lands. And the aquifers. So I think, I'm glad I'm not sorting it out.
Councillor Honeyman.
I still think that without looking at the members of the public, I think they should submit their own submissions as well, even if even though they cut and paste a bit of what we've got here, a bit of context, it might have more impact if they have a short and sweet application from that particular part of the season. So anyway, I'm sure you will anyway. It would have more impact if you did it in addition to us. The other thing I'm going to say, the levelling up, of course they don't call it that anymore. That was political at the time, wasn't it? I don't know what the Labour Party call it now. I don't think they do actually.
It's still
Just local.
It's still cool.
I thought they tried to drop it because they didn't want to use it for obvious reasons, because it was like the ghost sort of baby, wasn't it, at the time. I think the principles are, I'm not sure they actually call it that, but just worth mentioning. And just a wider point, I know we go on about, on one level of course, most of Seaford's not in the national park, but we have to think of lots of places in big larger towns in national park, like Lewis and Midhurst and so on, are actually in national parks. That's always an interesting contrast. Because if you looked at Lewis now, you probably wouldn't approve certain places if you were starting from scratch, if you were going to use those criteria. But they're there now, so you can't really just knock down a few buildings because you don't like them. But just a by the by, I know some people think that building in national parks absolutely sacrosanct. You can't, but there are certain situations where you can, as we know. So
Yeah.
that's what I was going to say. All right, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So Olivia Honeyman.
Yes, obviously we've said about making sure residents' comments, and also there was a comment on number 59, which is page 25, about the contaminated land, if that can be put in. And I was pleased to see on page 27 about accessible homes, and that it will be, we've gone for the 15%. I'm really pleased that we've done that, because being part of the access group for New Haven Seaford, it's something that comes up a lot, but there's not enough new properties that are built that are actually accessible straight away, rather than someone has to move in and then has to adapt everything. So I'm pleased that we've gone for the highest option there for 15%. And also it was brought up about the Fell Road area as well. So if the comments that the resident made, if they can be added as well to the, because I think there is, there was a comment made about issue over parking loss, and
Lack of transport.
there's definitely lack of transport, and also with roads, but we brought that obviously at the pre-meeting to this as well. But the Fell Road area it's with lots of houses up there, there's just too much going on in one place, and there's not the road width or the pavements or anything, so I think we've already got on here that we need to really push the back then, obviously with the additional comments as well.
I think the additional comment on that was with the parking, was the fact that it's going to they could end up eating into a green space later
into
on.
South Downs National Park.
Because they then still need the parking.
Yeah, definitely, because the golf course will still need parking, the residents will still need parking.
And that's one thing that they'll want to try and protect more so. And
then obviously you've got Abundant Grace next door, which I know has got parking, but sometimes that will overflow wherever it overflows to.
Yeah. So do we have any other comments? Councillor Buchanan?
Thank you, Chair. Just more by way of an observation, because I'm not sure how much it might affect what we do in Seaford. But on page 21, and it's related to policy SD48, climate change and sustainable use of resources. I finally got around to reading some of this, and I was a little bit confused for a moment, because I refer to something called LETI, L-E-T-I, which I always knew to be the London Energy Transformation Initiative. It has now indeed been changed to Low Energy Transformation Initiative, so more by way of an observation. They do quote some space heating standards for all residential developments of one dwelling or more, which in LETI they have a number of options. They have good, not too bad, and exemplar. I'm actually going to just double check later about what these particular values represent. LETI is very good, by the way. But there we've got for all developments proposal which involve a change of use or redevelopment of the building or an extension of an existing building. It just talks about encouraging all to consider the opportunities to improve the energy efficiency. So I'm not sure encouragement is the word I would have chosen, and I can't quite think what it is, because building regs will come into this as well. So I'm not sure if you're redeveloping something, you clearly have to comply with building regs, but whether or not that may or may not benefit from being encouraged to use LETI as well, I'm not sure. Anyway, so just an observation of them. The LETI is very good.
Thank you. Any other comments on that? No?
Just through you, Chair, can I
Yeah.
just confirm a couple of things? So were you suggesting suggesting a change of wording to question 46.
I'd like to think encouragement could be strengthened, but I don't have the vocabulary that would actually achieve that.
I can find something.
Wrongly,
Yeah, but no, it's fine. If there's a suggested word, please call it out loud. Like enforce. Yeah, enforce would be the word, wouldn't it?
okay. Well, if you're, yeah.
So, Councillor Hanlon.
I had a thought, but I'm not sure if it's relevant for this particular part. So, forgive me if I'm getting it in the wrong place. Back to about accessible housing. Will there also, do we also need to make sure that they're going to make sure there's drop curbs and everything? If they're making accessible housing, there'll also be drop curbs around the area? Because that is something that sometimes doesn't get put in. We had this, we were shown a picture by an officer recently at the Access meeting where a disabled parking bay had been put, but there was no dropped curb because it would come up from a care home, or I can't remember exactly. But there was no actual drop curb for the person with the wheelchair to actually be able to access the vehicle. So I don't know whether that's relevant to put in here, or it's me just thinking, can we put that as an additional comment, that with accessible homes there is also the parking infrastructure put in place?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No,
I think
how we should do it as a
yeah.
matter of course. They're at fault
Yeah.
on it. People should do it as a matter of course, so they're at fault for that.
I know, but I just think because we've had to have, recently the county council managed to, after a lot of residents, well, a few particular residents with Links Road or Links Close, there wasn't a dropped curb there, and yet you're coming into Cheneys. And so for people for prams, wheelchairs, it took a lot of emailing with county councillor, local residents to actually get that drop curb put in. And I really think there's loads more places in Seaford that need drop curbs. And until you actually have, like I have with a family member now, you realise how there is a complete lack of drop curbs where there should be a drop curb. So
And sometimes they say they're a drop curb, but they're still a few inches and they're not.
And now I have a family member with a walker. We are really noticing it much more. And so can that possibly put in there as a comment that can you please put the drop curbs and all the relevant number of disabled parking bays that will be required, because that's the other thing. There's not always enough disabled parking bays. If they're going to put in 15% wheelchair accessible homes, so we also need the relevant disabled parking bays. If those comments can be added.
Yeah, good point.
So I'll put those when we're answering question 64, which is what are your views on policy NEW1, which is about accessible homes. I'll put all of those comments into that if everyone's happy with that.
Yeah. Councillor Meaky, I saw your hand up. No? Councillor Hanlon?
Yeah, when we come back to the Lewis local plan, later, can we put similar? I don't think we've done that so far, have we? You've done on the
I
district
think
plan.
it was accessible.
Did you do it on the district plan?
No, sorry, with the consultation later in the year, I think
we'll do something equivalent.
We'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, just for you, Chair, unless there's anything else, the members of the public that are here tonight have very kindly brought notes with them that they're going to leave me with. So if the committee are in agreement, I will then include those points in.
Yeah, which we
noted,
did
but-
agree that
yeah.
we add those.
That's fine, you sent me an email.
So, any other comments on this? No? So, the recommendation is to agree to finalise the Town Council's response to the South Downs National Park Authority's local plan consultation. So, we have members of the public's comments, committee's comments this evening, what we've already had from the agenda. Can I have a proposer to accept this? Thank you, Councillor Cannon, and a seconder? Councillor Honeyman, and all those in favour? Thank you very much. So, final agenda item 6, update report. Is to consider report 177/24 on the Lewis District Council South Downs National Park Authority's decisions received since the last meeting. Is there any comments on this? No, so our recommendation is to note the report and the decisions set out in the schedule. Everyone notes that?
Mhm.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much. And that brings us to the end of our meeting at 19:54. Thank you very much for coming, everybody.